Evening, Rachel Vincent.
Hello everybody, and thank you for coming for our little show about death, which in the great tradition of comic irony we're presenting to you live tonight from the Journal Club. Most people are pretty terrified of death, aren't they, secretly? And yet, you know, if you ask them, what are you more afraid of? They'll say they're more frightened of public speaking than they are of death. So you know what that means, don't you? That means they'd rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy at the funeral. What it also tells you is getting up here like this in front of you is only slightly more terrifying than death. So welcome to Death is Overrated, the show where you get to find out everything you ever needed to know about death from someone who's already been there. And for those of you whose questions can't be answered, or who just want a little respite from contemplating the inevitable, we have for you our magnificent chocolate wheel tonight, replete with beautiful prizes from Margaret's cupboard she's been collecting for a lifetime, and a whole bucket full of, I know, just wait till you really want to get your hands on these beauties, don't you? And a whole bucket full of lovely handy hints here for living life well while you've still got one. So, life. It's pretty bloody risky business, isn't it? And, you know, there's only one thing certain about it. And that is that sooner or later, we're all going to die. Yep. Life itself is a death sentence, isn't it? As Freud said, the goal of life is death. Death is inevitable. And yet, it's also very popular. 55 million people did it last year. Just yesterday, 161,500 people popped their clocks. By the time this show is over, another 6,300 people will be dead. Yes, 100 people died just in the last minute. That's almost 2 people a second. Somebody could even die here tonight. It's possible. Could it be you? Could it be you? Who knows? Are you sure you want to be spending your last minutes here with us? But what would you die of? What are you most likely to die of? Well, in Australia, you're most likely to die of heart disease. That's a lovely thought, isn't it? And after that, the next most likely cause of death is dementia. Yes, and after that, the big C. Yet for some reason, a lot of us are terrified of the most ridiculous things, like dying from a shark attack. Which of course is completely illogical, because statistically, you're far more likely to be killed by a vending machine. Yes, twice as likely to kill you. And if you want to worry about animals that are more likely to kill you, let me tell you, cows are a lot more likely to kill you than sharks. They killed 20 people last year. Ants are very frightening animals. They killed 50 people last year across the globe. You should be a lot more frightened of ants than you should be of sharks. Did you also know the hippo? The hippo is a ferocious, dangerous beast. It killed 2,900 people last year. Sharks? Psh, nothing. And that's not to mention the inanimate objects. You know, you really should be frightened of bed. People falling out of bed die in vast numbers each year. They also drown in the bath. Swing sets are notoriously dangerous. So is going to the doctor. 7,000 people were killed by doctors last year because of their sloppy handwriting. I would be very afraid, yes, before I went to the doctor if I were you. Much more afraid of going to the doctor than of sharks. And then of course there's things like falling coconuts. 150 people were killed by falling coconuts just last year, sitting on the beach probably looking out for sharks. But of course, the most frightening beast of all, the scariest and most dangerous animal in the world is that little blighter that you all know very well, the mosquito. Yes, the mosquito killed 800,000 people last year, and you worry about a shark attack. There's an awful lot to be frightened of, isn't there? Yes. My dad's frightened. He worries about death quite a lot. He rang me just the other day. He said, you know, Rachel, I've just realised that I don't need to buy any more shirts before I die. I've got enough shirts to last me till my death. Isn't that sad? I said, yes, Dad. There's my dad. He opens his wardrobe drawer and looks into his shirt cupboard. And he sees the face of death leering at him. Some people pick the most peculiar things to worry about. He's probably also got life insurance. You know, they call it life insurance, but they don't really give you your life back or anything, do they? No. Sad thing. But it's good to contemplate your death, isn't it? It's good to think about death. Kind of puts you on the edge of life a little bit. Keeps you honest. It's bracing, you know. That's the whole idea, isn't it, behind the memento mori, the lovely skulls and things like that. This is to remind me that I'm not dead yet, even though I could die any second. So, and it's funny, you know, thinking about death. I've been thinking about death a lot preparing for this little show. I'm not just meeting Margaret and talking about death, but, oh, you know, on my lonesome. And I've been thinking about it, and, you know, it's interesting. It's such a milestone in our lives, isn't it? And yet we have a whole industry around christenings and weddings, you know, the whole wedding planning industry, and it's a whole palaver. But we don't really do that much work on our own funerals, do we? I mean, you kind of, you know, have a little bit of a think about your will or, you know, whatever, but why don't we do our own funerals? Why don't we make it more of a business of that? I think that'd be fantastic. I mean, let's face it, at your funeral, people are going to say the nicest things about you. They're going to send you a lot of lovely flowers. It'll be too late, but, you know, I wouldn't want to miss my own funeral. And that's a little bit like what we're doing tonight, isn't it? Celebrating a life clutched from the jaws of death. So I think it's time we introduce to you our star of the night. She was a horse trainer by the age of 5. She learned to drive a truck before that. She's been riding a motorbike for 50 years of her life before it killed her 3 years ago. She's been trapped in a pyramid. She's lived in a war zone. She's survived a cyclone. She's met a headhunter. She's been accused of murder. She took her school class to a morgue to teach them to be unafraid of death. She's been a Lutheran minister's wife for most of her life, while setting up an international business. She's had the dubious honour of sleeping in Mrs. Bucket's bed on the QE2. At the age of 85, she is already older than the average dead Australian woman, here to teach you all why she thinks, nay knows, that death is indeed overrated. Please welcome the magnificent Margaret Mann!
It doesn't matter if they're not too handsome or too young, just somebody to help me up this step, because that hasn't got out. You definitely. Right. One push and one pull. Thank you, that makes it easier. What I was going to say is, eat your heart out, young girls, you see. You don't have to have youth on your side. Right, now, you can put some music on because I'm going to dance across the stage. That's what my manager told me to do. Right, ready? Shit happens. You just have to learn to use it as fertiliser and grow something good out of it. That's what's happened in a lot of my life. And I'm going to tell you stories tonight. They're all true. Well, as much as I can remember it. And I have it on good authority of one of the comedians whose name I've forgotten, but wasn't one of, the Marx brother, one of the Marxes. He said you should always tell the truth. If you can fake that, you've got it made. There are different kinds of funnies, like the funny ha-ha. I can't do that because I always forget the punchline. The funny peculiar, I think probably that's the category I'd fall into. Tonight, if I can get you to laugh, we will all make history together, because I will be the oldest performing comedian in the world. I have to say, according to Mr. Google. The Marx, no, was he Marx? Yes, the Marx brother said, you should always be honest. And if you can fake that, you got it made. So I'm going to teach you how to fake a laugh tonight, because if you laugh enough, I don't think you have to laugh even more than once. You've already done that, but I'm going to teach you how to laugh in a very convincing manner. All right, most people when they fake a laugh, and we all do it because we feel we have to sometimes, you take a big breath and you and everybody can tell it isn't real.
Terrible, Margaret.
Terrible. Well, that was even worse than I've even done it before. However, if you let your breath out and then that sounds better. Well, look, you do better. Come on, breathe out. Now laugh. History has just been made. Now that was a hint. You might use it sometime in your life that you feel inclined to need the laugh, and you can do that without a breath. Okay, the next handy hint I've got is actually a warning, and it's about bucket lists. Just beware of writing a bucket list if you don't want it to come true. My son was killed 1982, and I thought I wouldn't be truly happy again. Somebody said to me, Margaret, what you need to do is write a bucket list. They were pretty new in those days. 50 things to do before you die. So off I went. I eventually got the 50 done. Put it somewhere, and as one does, didn't see it again. 20 years later, my husband Rolf found this piece of paper, and he said, what's this list with all these things written on it? And we sat down together and looked. I had done every one except one. Every one of the things on that list I had done. That's what I said. Look out for that bucket list that you think is just a bit of writing on a bit of paper. What was the thing? Go on, surely somebody would have called out and said, what was the thing that wasn't done? Anyway, the person, I have an idea that the person who actually orchestrated it is actually in the room tonight. I'm not quite sure whether you were the person, Mike, who rang up Rolf and said, would you go to Cardiff and look after a church in Wales? Anyway, we went. We got there in the last snowfall of the season. And then up came all the flowers out of the snow. And I had my final wish. How can that be? Every one of those 50 things on the list, just because I've written them down, all countries. So, look out for the bucket list. Look out. But then my husband said, hey, 50 things you're going to do before you die. You'd better write some more things down here. And I remember sitting in the man's table and scribbling down a few things just to shut him up more than anything, which happens quite frequently. My daughter Susan found that list a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "Mum, do you know what's on the list?" And I can't really remember exactly what it was, but it was something about being on stage and making a lot of people laugh. So, there. Now, something comes next, I'm quite sure.
I think you should sit down and we should start the rest of the show.
Oh, right, that's what it was. I had to sit down here. Right.
All right.
This thing here. Right, I've got a bit of a gammy foot. I went to a specialist and he said it was TB. TB in a foot? Can't get TB in a foot. I'm sort of used to telling specialists their own job. And he said, TB, yes, totally buggered. Just explaining. I'm not old, really.
When I first met Margaret, it really struck me what an incredible life she's had. And it really has been a kind of a near-death life. Quite an extraordinary life, it seems. You've been brushed with death, been running for the jaws of death all along the way. And as you say, life itself is a near-death experience. Being born is a dangerous experience, as your mother might say.
My mother said it was like shelling peas. Well, when I had my son, I can assure you it wasn't anything.
But you were born in the middle of nowhere in a heat wave.
A bad heat wave. A very big one. 1931, perhaps you could even find out how hot it was. But because it was in the Great Depression or at the end of it, my parents didn't have enough money to build a proper house. They built a tin shed. And that's where we lived, in the heat wave with a newborn baby. So my father had put up in a broom shed, obviously made of broom bush, a bag cool safe. Of course, you certainly didn't have refrigerators in those days. Some of you are probably old enough to know that kind of construction with a tap dripping on the top. Well, I went into the top shelf because the bottom shelf was reserved pretty well for the snakes that came in to drink the water. And snakes were, I'm a top shelf baby. Snakes were a fairly definite part of my life. I can remember one of them, my mother had to go out with a stick of some sort, and it did not like it. She missed it. You'd think he'd appreciate that. And he came at her like this. You know, you see that in pictures, but I can remember as a small child seeing this snake come up to my mother. I ran towards her. I don't know whether I thought I was going to save her or something. And she eventually did kill it. But snakes, I nearly lost my life to a death adder.
Wow.
Yes. The school that I taught in first, by request, a little school way over on the west coast. Well, it was way over in those days. Now it's just a quick car ride. Nanjicombida. Nanjicombida. Where? Nanjicombida. Well, as I told some people over in Wales, because they thought they had long names. Nanjicombida, it's in between Pimbakla, Taknibinjna Tank, just this side of Madamakla, down from Lake Carabara, Wirrakana. So there. I'm not sure where the lake is, but it's there somewhere. The students at my school always jumped from the top step of the school down to the bottom. There were 3 steps, I think, and they just did it like lambs. If you ever chase lambs around, they seem to jump like that when they get out of the run. And All the children jumped. I, of course, go down one step at a time, the lady that I was. I got top shelf again, yes, top step this time. I went down 2 steps, and on the 3rd step, coiled up was a death adder. Now, I heard that you have 3 minutes to live if you get bitten by a death adder. And I was way away from any kind of help. And so I went down 1, 2 steps, and then my leg froze over the top of this death adder. A little Aboriginal boy called Archibald Bruno Laurie, never forgotten Archie. He picked up a stone and went shoom like that, hit it on the head, squashed his head, dead death adder, and not dead teacher. So, snake. Oh, yes, and there's another snake story with the death adder. The family I lived with, I used to live in the back of a garage, and as I came into the kitchen of the house, there was a death adder curled up alongside of the path. And I went in and told the boss man there was a death adder just there. I didn't know what he was going to do about it, but I certainly wasn't going to do anything about it. He went out there, sized it up, picked it up by the tail, whizzed it around his head and cracked off his head. Head flew one way and threw down the same. Oh, I said, how did you ever practice doing that? He said, just start with the little ones.
Angry heads you never knew you needed to know. And there were other dead animals, weren't there, around in Takanabinsha?
Oh, yes, Takanabinsha Tank. This was before the pipeline came from Port Lincoln. And people had to use the water from Takanabinsha Tank for their bath water. Well, unfortunately, once a horse fell in, drowned, and started to decompose before anybody found out that there was a dead horse in their bath water. Well, water was very scarce. And there was a system whereby teacher had the first bath, the kids had the second bath, mum had the 3rd bath, dad had the 4th bath, and the workman came last. But teacher had a bottle of Helena Rubinstein apple blossom perfume, and I emptied the whole lot into the smelly horse water, and I'm not quite sure what the workman smelled like at the end. That's my bath story.
Because you weren't used to bathing quite so regularly, or had you already kind of got up to speed at this stage?
Well, I'd gone to Emmanuel College, and they had this dreadful system of having to have a shower every day. My mother, however, rebelled violently against her mother, and she used to make us have a bath every week. Her mother had a bath once a year. And mind you, she grew up amongst royalty. She lived in a very high-class society, and once a year was what they did. And every September, come the 1st of September, I would have to clean out her bath, all the stuff that was stored in it for the winter, and she would have her bath. So I know it was true.
Now, the other thing that nearly killed you when you were young was your dad's truck.
Nearly killed him too, just trying to keep it going all the time. Oh dear, he was lucky to have a truck. We mostly got around with horses. And, well, must have been just after my little brother was born. I was about 3.5, maybe 4, and the local farmers get together and have probably on a Sunday afternoon, something like that, cricket match. And, of course, there was the proverbial keg afterwards. I think they only played cricket so that they could get to the keg. But the keg was emptied, the sun had gone down, I was put to sleep in the front of the truck, Well, Father tried to get the thing going. And he tried and he tried and he tried. Petrol chokes were common. He blew in that tube thing that goes to that other thing that floats the petrol in. And he splattered himself with petrol, of course. By that time, he had to light a lantern. He knocked the lantern over. Not only did the truck catch a light, he caught a light. And the screaming and yelling that he did while he was trying to get at me, to pull me out of the car, attracted, very fortunately, a rabbit trapper who was camped nearby. And while Father was screaming and rolling on the ground and trying to put out the flames, the rabbit trapper, because I had tried to get out of it, I can remember very distinctly trying to get out of the front of the car. Every time I touched the handle, it was hot, hot, hot. So I couldn't. But the rabbit trapper from the outside pulled it open. I remember being grabbed and he threw me onto the sand. And I just hit the sand as the car exploded. And a handy hint is, when I was taken to the local farmhouse, Father was taken straight to hospital, and she put carb soda paste all over my hands. So, you know, perhaps a bad case of sunburn might be helped by that too, I'm not sure. But I can't remember ever having problems with my burned hands.
And you already learnt to drive that truck, didn't you, when you were a little one?
Oh, yes. Father was pretty fond of the, I'm not sure what you call it, the beer. And although...
They call it 4X.
Yeah. Although 6 o'clock closing was what they did, there was always those rooms at the back that they shuttled the beer into. And we just lined up, my brother, sister, my mother and I, and we just waited. Eventually Father came. Mother was nursing the baby, little sister was stuck in between, and I got to sit on Father's lap. So that's how I learned to drive, sitting on his lap. Mind you, after a little while he just gradually sort of fell asleep, and his foot went down, 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 and the speed of the truck, well, obviously went up as his foot went down. That's how it works, isn't it? And so I'd have to wake him up. Mind you, we'd hit about 30 miles an hour at top speed. That old truck, it rattled along. And so that's how I learned to drive. So later on, when Father needed somebody to take the seed and super out to the paddock where he was sowing, he had to take the horses. I couldn't do that. He got the car going, pulled out the choke, ran alongside of me, and I knelt up on the seat and drove. When I got to the other end, I just threw it into neutral. I could still do it, I reckon. And I'd swing down off the steering wheel, 2 little legs, one on the brake and one on the clutch, and push up the gear stick into neutral.
The days of responsible parenting.
Yeah. However, he picked on me once because I parked crooked.
I love the bit of advice he gave you about marrying. I believe he said to you something like, I don't care what you do with your life as long as you don't marry a German or a parson. but tell us about his death, because that's an amazing story.
All right.
Go on.
Okay. He died a couple of times. It sort of runs in our family, this dying business. He wasn't really a church man. He used to go to special occasions. But it really impressed me that when he was dying, he didn't die. all right, when he was dying he didn't die, because he told us what he saw when he was dying. He went down, and you've heard this from other people, this tunnel with a bright light at the end, and he said to me something that I've never forgotten from a non-church man. He said, the closer I got to that light, the more excited I got, because I knew that the light had everything in it that I ever wanted. I didn't know what the light was, but I knew who it was.
And he really very nearly did die, didn't he? He was absolutely on his deathbed. And I think you had even organised a funeral, is this right?
Yes.
And his wife was there.
2 wives were there.
Right.
And I'd actually written to my daughter, who was on a honeymoon in Canada, I think.
Of course.
And my brother had booked the local golf course for some kind of a wake. And he didn't die. He didn't die. He...
Tell us what happened in the morning.
Right, well,
hang on.
2 wives were... One wife, the new wife, used to sit there during the day. And then my mother, who was the old wife, no, I won't call her that, the first wife, she wouldn't appreciate it, even though she was long gone. She would sleep in a little bed along the side of him at night. And come the morning, he was still alive. The doctors had said they'd never had anybody who had lived, considering how many organs had closed down. So we knew that it was very imminent this time. Mother knew that she wouldn't see him again, so she gave him a little peck on the cheek as she went off to teach. And the sister called her back and said, "Oh, Mrs. Henske, you can do better than that." And so she thought, what the heck? And she gave him a really good schmacker, she told him. And the nursing sister looked at my father and said, "Well, Mr. Henske, what did you think of that?" He opened one eye and he said, "Bloody marvellous." And he lived 10 years after that. Mother called it the kiss of life.
Right, we're going to have a little break now.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah. Because I know you're all dying to have a chance, have a crack at winning one of these magnificent prizes from our chocolate wheel. Failing that, you might perhaps win a handy hint from Margaret.
Here we go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Susan. Beautiful daughter. We've got a lot of top shelf prizes for you here
These
tonight,
came from the bottom of my cupboard because they were little prizes that came from me losing Weight Watchers years ago.
Got some lovely soap, beautiful handkerchief, a set of gardening gloves for people who like to get their hands dirty. I've already shown you some of these beautiful looks. There's a rustle going through the crowd. There's a sense of excitement, a sense of thrill at the possibility that you might win these opaque pantyhose, perhaps these beautiful earrings that you could wear in your coffin, something to write notes on the fridge or something like that. I don't even know what that is. It doesn't matter. It's all magnificent.
I've got some chocolate bars that just make it worth coming
Now you know you want one. Righto, we're going to do this incredibly brilliant random process. I'm going to pick a number. Has everyone got their number? Has everyone got their ticket?
Yeah. Come on, quick.
Righto, quick. We've got more stories to tell. And the number is 49. 49! The lovely gentleman up the back. Thank you for coming, sir. Please stand up. We're going to roll.
Hi, Margaret.
Here's the chocolate.
We've got your chocolate. But in any case, we're going to roll the wheel. Round and round and round she goes. Where it stops, nobody... the music, man. Jenny, what a magnificent prize. What should we give you? What about this beautiful set of flowers, garden, home fragrance, parfum à l'intérieur? There you go. Never mind
worrying about the dead horse. You pass that back to the lovely gentleman. We've got a chocolate bar for him too, and a chocolate bar. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. Let's do one more quickly. We know you would like something else. You just can't keep your hands off these fantastic prizes.
It's no good.
All right, and
mixing
now the
them up.
surprise number
They
is...
don't get better.
What did you say?
They don't get any better if you...
Number 43. Where are you? Don't hold back. Oh, the lovely lady in the front. All right, let's see, what do we get? Round and round and round she goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. Oh, fancy that. A helpful hint. Wonderful. We've got a whole box of helpful hints. Come on, Margaret, why don't you choose one?
Give them out at the door. Please get rid of them.
There's about 300.
Righto.
What does it say?
Clean the inside of a microwave, zap a bowl of water and lemon juice for 5 minutes on high. Let it cool before opening the door so the steam seeps round the microwave and you wipe it down spotlessly clean.
Fabulous.
I don't
Cleanliness
know.
is next to godliness. Let's have a chocolate bar. Here you go, lovely lady. Thank you for coming. Have a nice life. All right then.
That's, I know it's awfully slick, isn't it? We've been practicing for at least 2 days. Right, on with the show. Hang on. Now, I want you to tell us, in 1958, Margaret, I mean, she really has had the most extraordinary life. In 1958, Margaret went to PNG, to the Highlands, to go and check out some missions, to visit some missions with her husband. And you really put your life on the line just going there, didn't you? They'd only just recently outlawed cannibalism. You had a guard with a bow and arrow protecting you, walking around the house every night. And you even met a headhunter.
I most certainly did, and although it wasn't my place to talk to him, it was my husband who was having the conversation, I got game enough to say, "What's the tastiest part of the human being?" I know now, directly from his own mouth. Mind you, he'd given it up. They sort of made it illegal, and he'd become a Christian, and it was Sunday. All right, anybody like to guess? Who doesn't know?
It's not the parson's nose.
That was my mother's favourite part. Not of the human, not of the parson. Right. It's the fingers, he said. And I thought, finger licking good.
It's just horrible.
It is horrible. But the cuckoos were well renowned for their rather vicious attacks on
What's
each
a
other.
cuckoo? Is that a headhunter?
That's their tribal name.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there was a whole other language to learn in PNG.
Oh,
They didn't really speak English.
lots and lots of different languages. Yes.
But tell us about the time you had a misunderstanding about...
Pidgin English. Pidgin
Yes.
English is a wonderful language. It was a combination, I think, of Australian and German and some native language. People know more about that than I do. But in the church service, I remember being rather surprised that I could translate, "We all bugger up people." Yeah, that's confession of sins. I actually sat and learnt the Pope's excommunication of Martin Luther. It would have been good in Latin. In English, the translation was, "O Lord, arise, for a wild pig has entered thy vineyard." All right. "One fella pig no good, in bugger up garden belong you." So, who wouldn't learn that by heart? But poor Rolf, he was lecturing at the seminary and he tried to master some of this pidgin English. He had a book with translations in it, and I'd sit there and he'd try and guess what it was that I said. And I came across this beautiful one. Bras belong tit. Okay, you can laugh. I guarantee you don't know what it is. All right, you want to have a guess? You're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. It's a... See, they can't say certain letters. It's a breast belong your teeth. It's a toothbrush. Bras belong tit.
And that wasn't the first of the kind of misunderstandings you had in your international travels, because Margaret's been to Korea as well. Tell us what happened in Korea when you were trying to make phone calls for your business.
All right. I shall admit, I went up there with
Top shelf lady.
Yeah, I went up there with some Amway people because they were going to open an Amway business in the days when Amway was all the rage. And I heard a moan, I heard that.
We'll give you a prize.
And I was going to invite top businessmen to come and join me in my business. And do you think I could get even one to agree to meet me? I would get on the phone to the secretary and say, I would like to invite your president. No, I didn't. Wait a minute, start again.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. I am a businesswoman from Australia. I would like to talk to your president. Nobody would give me even a hint of meeting me. Why? A businesswoman is a prostitute. It's interesting, I got plenty of people who met with me. Once I changed it to, I am a grandmother from Australia and I would like to. Now, can you believe that? Yeah, that was true.
And there was another time when you had a sort of a bit of a confusion with the marginal part of society, wasn't there?
Marginal part of society. You mean Tex?
I mean Tex.
Yes. Well, all right.
Well, Tex and Crime Stoppers.
Yeah. Amway comes into it again. He rang up and wanted some Amway socks, and I just happened to be an agent, and they sent him to me. And every month, this dear man would come and get another pair of socks. He was obviously lonely. He was 6'5". He was a truck driver. His name was Tex. And he was, what you call it, he was between a woman and a man. And he had been excommunicated, I'm used to that word, by his family. He was living by himself here in Adelaide.
He used to bring his strawberry jam, didn't he?
Yes, he had a wonderful strawberry patch on a raised bed at the back of his house. And, the strawberry jam was really very appreciated. One day, he was in the hospital having had a hernia operation, and I thought, well, I can go over and visit him. Off I went. And he pulled down his hospital gown a little bit further than it was absolutely necessary. And I saw his scar, which he wanted me to see, and I also saw a little penis the size of my little finger. And I did feel very much for that poor man. He arrived one day dressed as a woman. And if you can imagine a tall 6'5" male with a red wig and high heels and called himself Joanne, it was certainly an educational experience for my children and my grandchildren. Then one day I heard on the radio that a body had been discovered buried in the strawberry patch at the back of his house, and he'd been decapitated. And they were asking for anybody who could give them information as to the possible identity of the person. Well, I thought, well, Crime Stoppers, here I come. And when I rang up and told them that I could identify this man by his penis. The head of the police arrived at our house very, very quickly. Told me I was not allowed to leave, not only the country, I couldn't even leave the city. The two girls who were responsible for his death were prostitutes, and obviously I could have been their madam, because I knew what had happened. Right.
Margaret Mayer,
Oh, yeah.
top shelf lady.
Good.
All right, we're going to have one more go of our chocolate wheel. Because
Okay.
it's too silly.
Oh, look, I've got more of these.
You got some more chocolates? All right, fantastic. Has everyone got their numbers ready?
I could really
Just quickly now. We've got to get rid of these lovely prizes.
Could I?
What are these, Margaret? I think these look like little Amway emu egg covers.
I've never seen them before in my life.
All right, and the number is number 10. Who's number 10? Oh, hello, sir. Very good. We're spinning the wheel for you now. Round and round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. Oh, I'll just slow it down a little bit. Oh, you've won a prize. Absolutely fantastic. I'm sure you'd love this lovely Avon Rich Moisture Hand and Nail Cream, wouldn't you? Pass that back to the fine gentleman and give him a round of applause. Let's do one more. I want a chocolate bar. Can you catch? Can you catch? Here, from me. Woo! Woo! We aim to please. Number 39. Number 39. Where are you? Number 39. Oh, an honourable guest here tonight. We're going to spin the wheel for you. Round and round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. Oh, a helpful hint. Just what you never knew you needed to live life well. What have we got, Margaret? Hang on a minute.
Give him 2, because he
What?
helped me up the stairs.
Oh, very good. Yes, there's a bit of favouritism there, but let's give him a helpful hint.
Right, oh, right, okay.
Improving quality of life here tonight, folks.
Right, over here.
What have you got?
Not that you needed another reason to get into bed, but did you know that the more orgasms you... Put this in here. You cut it out of your back's life. The more orgasms you have, the longer you'll live. I don't think I'm even going to read anymore. That's enough.
So the secret to long life, there in your hot little hands. Aren't you sorry you didn't get that chip
His
yourself?
wife deserves the other one.
It looks like a lovely, long-living man, and I'm very pleased to see it. We've got a healthy sense of humour and a healthy love of life right here. All right, we've got a very short few minutes left to go in our lovely show, but I'd like to ask you now, because we all know, you all heard me say at the beginning of the show, and I'm sure a lot of you already know, because you all seem to be Margaret's friends.
Oh, no, you've got me call now.
We all know that Margaret has died. But did you also know that Margaret could have lost all of her 3 children? You had several miscarriages. Your daughter Susan was nearly aborted, considered dead in utero until the anaesthetist found a heartbeat, so you decided to keep her. Go home, he said. And Anne was only conceived because Rolf took a vote from amongst his students on whether or not he should have another child because it was the Vietnam War.
He obviously hadn't prepared that lesson.
And poor Susan was resuscitated before the age of 2, having turned blue with a temperature of 106. And your 3rd child, Peter, had a burst appendix as an infant, and you made a deal with God, didn't you?
Yep, I said, look, if you let my little boy grow up into a man... Oh, thank you, Rachel, you've learnt your keep. If you let my little boy grow into a man, I will not complain if you take him early. And he died at 27. And that was probably why I smiled during the funeral. I actually laughed when I saw him in his coffin, but that was for another reason, because he'd had an autopsy and he'd had white frill around his neck and his face was all splattered with looked like mud, and me and his young wife just hung on to each other and we laughed. And I thought, laughing in the face of death, Margaret, that's good.
And it was an extraordinary thing, wasn't it? Because you came to see him on your birthday, just before he died.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he called out, "Come in, Mother, I'm having a shower, but you've seen it all before." Well, I hadn't seen it for 20 years, so it's a bit of a shock. But as I left, he just held his hands up. I can't put that arm up, but he held his arms up, looked up to the ceiling and said, because he was going to pull that house, part of that house down next day, he said, "You won't ever see this again, Mother." Boy, that was poignant. When next day we got the phone call from Pastor Vic Fitzner, who I think I saw in the audience, to say that he'd been electrocuted. But it was a sad, happy thing, because I remembered that promise about not being too sad about losing him early.
And I think I'd like you to tell us about what happened when you died.
Right. I don't know whether Valerie was here the other day.
Because some of the story Margaret can't remember, actually, and I've been told this by her family, that there was a time when Margaret died, and well, after she'd sort of been resuscitated and she was in hospital, and she was so sick, she had a brain hemorrhage, so she was bleeding in her brain, she had masses of broken bones, her pelvis was pulverised, so they didn't know if she'd be compos mentis or even be able to walk if she came to. And apparently all the specialists were sitting around her bed in hospital discussing whether or not they should resuscitate her if she went. And Margaret opened an eye, like her father before her, and said, "I'm not dead yet!"
I don't remember anything except going through that little wooded part just before West Terrace and seeing the most amazing shiny line going off through the park. And I stopped the bike and just looked at it. And actually, to be honest, my thought was, I wonder what polish they used. That was incredibly shiny. But then I realised that the light was coming from underneath. And just over the other side, with his arms stretched out towards me, was my son. And he said to me in the clearest tone, "Mother, it's time we were together. It's been 30 years." And it was. And I was about to step into his arms, and there was a tug in my pocket. 3 tugs with a thumb inside. It was so clear and so memorable. 1, 2, 3. And I looked down, and there was a granddaughter who lived in Paris. Daughter Susan's daughter, Mickey. And she said, "No, you can't go yet, Omar. I need you." Today, she had an operation for cancer, and she was living with us. If she had not come to visit us, I don't know whether she would have been able to afford an operation overseas. And here, of course, we're in the Adelaide Hospital and it's all free. So she really did. If she didn't need me, she needed my house. And yes, well, we're hoping that it'll be a successful operation. We haven't heard yet. So
there's a real connection, isn't there, between Mickey and Peter?
She was conceived soon after Peter died. And she was supposed to be born a month before his birthday. And it got closer and closer and closer. She was born on his birthday. And so every year, when Peter's birthday came around, we had cause for celebration because it was Mickey's birthday. In fact, as a little girl, she couldn't tell the difference between Jesus and her Uncle Peter, because they both had beards and they were both carpenters. And as she said, one died and she lived. So it was something memorable for
And
her.
just before we finish, I'd like you to just tell us a little bit about what death taught you.
Ah, yes. It was quite amazing that I didn't know anything. I didn't feel any pain. I mean, being killed on the road and squashed up and all the things that had happened to me, and then all the healing, no pain whatsoever, no memory of any pain or any hurt. And after 2 months, I knew where I was and what I was, who I was. And I could not think of anything bad. I actually tried. I thought, I used to have bad things. Now let me think, what were they? I could not. And that went on for almost a year after my accident. That to me was just absolutely incredible. I've lost all... Well, I feel at the moment I've lost all fear of death. It's just something that I'm really looking forward to. and because I'm expecting it to be a repeat of that accident.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We've nearly come to the end of the show.
Can I tell you what Rolf used to
Yeah.
tell his students?
Yes, please.
You were going to remind me, weren't you?
Yeah.
I jumped in first. Good. She's been my rock. Rolf used to tell his students, and there are a couple of them, they're here, and they might even jump up and correct me because I might get it wrong, which is pretty easy to do. You should teach your students how to live and not just how to make a living. Teach them to love, because unless they learn to love, they can't learn how to live. Teach them how to laugh, because laughing is living. Teach them how to die, because unless they know how to die, they won't know how to live.
Amen. One more handy hit. Something about
A curtsy. Oh, yes. Yeah. My grandmother, this one that didn't wash much, she lived where she met royalty regularly, and she had to do the big curtsy whenever royalty moved around. And so, as a little 8-year-old, she taught me how to curtsy. All right, I'm about to give you, my royal audience, my royal curtsy. Now, I think I'd better go back and hang on to the chair.
All right.
Hang on to you.
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
You can do away with that. We don't.
You can hang on to me.
Right. Ready? Right.